to this meeting of Dumfries and Galloway Council on Tuesday 18th of December. Can I remind everyone that this meeting has been called as part of the budget process agreed by the full Council at its meeting on 23rd of August. The opportunity has also been taken to submit outstanding minutes for approval and to follow up on the Council's decision of 29th of November to receive a revised calendar of meetings. Can I also remind members that this meeting will be recorded and that the recording will be subsequently be available for public listening. Right. Move on to item 1, Sederunt and Apologies. Mr. Haswell.
Thank you, Leader. I have apologies from Councillors Gilroy, Peacock, Geddes, Prentice and Tate. There are 43 members present.
Item 2, does anyone have any declarations of interest? No hands up. Item 3, we'll move on to the meeting of Dumfries and Galloway Council of 29th of November 2012. I would move as a correct record.
Happy to second.
Councillor Forster.
Thank you, Chair. I may be wrong. It won't be the first time I've been wrong in this chamber, but I draw members' attention to page 12, 17.23. It says to commit the sum of £75,000 to progress the design of marina infrastructure, pontoons and breakwater to a shovel-ready state. My understanding was that we agreed to put the £75 forward if it was required. There are surveys already exist that have been done, wave modelling, etc. Nobody was against putting the money forward, but we didn't agree the full 75,000. 75,000 was only to be used if required. The minute doesn't reflect that.
Mr. Haswell, I note you've got the motion that was tabled at the meeting. Could you just clarify that point?
What is in the minutes is a direct lift from the paper submitted by Councillors Dick and McClung and subsequently amended, I think, with input from memory from Councillor Smith. So that's what I have written down as the paper that was put forward to me, sir. I'm happy to give you it there. I keep my copies of my notes.
Mr. Foster.
I would move that my interpretation is correct.
Councillor Carruthers.
Thanks very much, Leader. My interpretation of that is that we would commit up to 75. It's the same with any decision that we make. We put a sum there, but whether we spend it all or not, it's not necessarily that we will spend 75. It's not saying that we'll have to actually spend 75,000. It's saying that we can spend up to.
Well, it reads in the motion that was put forward, agree the sum of 75,000 to progress the design of the marina infrastructure, pontoons and breakwater to a shovel-ready state. That was what was the paper that was tabled. Councillor Smith.
Certainly I made the point that the Councillor Carruthers makes is that the phrase should have been up to 75,000, but I didn't go as far as to say what Councillor Foster says, that if required, although that was part of the debate at PH&E, but I certainly said up to £75,000. I would have hoped that the Council wouldn't spend money on something if it didn't require to spend money on something. But I think up to is probably the more accurate phraseology.
Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, whether required or necessary up to, if people are quite happy up to, then I think it should be amended to read that, to commit up to the sum of £75,000. No need to spend it, it was not required, Chair.
I would remind members we're looking at the accuracy of the record. That was what was tabled and voted upon, well, not voted upon, it was agreed unanimously. Now, Councillor Foster, have you got a seconder?
Bearing in mind I changed it, I will take cognizance of what Councillor Smith has said, and my understanding would be up to 75. We can leave out if required, because up to infers that, but it's got to have up to 75.
Councillor Dykes.
Sorry, Chair, but we do have a tabled motion which had a couple of amendments in it, and I would happily support your moving of the correct minute.
Mr. Haswell, I think you have the minute moved by myself and seconded by the Deputy Leader, and an amendment to that moved by Councillor Forster.
Just a small point, Leader, if that's okay, and just the fact it's the same way 7.3.1. It'd be up to there as well, and it's a given. It's an actual given with all these figures. When we allocate a sum of money, we always spend up to and not above. It could be £100,000 of that 524, or it could be the full 524,700. So just as a given, I agree with the wording what's within the minute.
Councillor Nicholson.
Chair, if I'm picking this up right, what Mr Haswell's saying is that if there's a motion tabled in paper, that's a motion in paper, when we know that's not true. We know that there's been motions, whether it be budget motions or whether it be anything else, that that is then debated. It is then there's amendments made to that by somebody speaking to that. So I don't understand how it's if a bit of paper comes along, that is not necessarily the motion that goes forward.
Councillor Marshall.
For clarity, can we not check the audio recording of the meeting?
What was tabled was the paper, and there was asked for the addition of a certain amount of words, and was it the last? Was it item 4? Maybe you should read those. You'll understand you're right.
In item 4, and it was Councillor Smith who asked for the amendment to be made, sir. The original wording was retain the remainder of existing and future funding streams pending the submission of a report to the PHE Committee of all public consultation on the regeneration of Stranraer. Councillor Smith specifically asked for the words to be inserted after the word consultation and options for the, and added at the end, Stranraer waterfront and the wider town. I've got these allocated to Councillor Smith. He asked for these words to be added, sir.
Right. Well, we have a motion that the minute is correct, and we have an amendment.
Thank you, sir. The motion is by yourself, seconded by the Deputy Leader, and that is the minute of the council meeting of the 29th of October is an accurate record of the decisions taken at that meeting. The amendment by Councillor Forster, seconded by Councillor Scobie, is that on item 17 under the heading Stranraer Waterfront Regeneration, in part 3, the words up to should be inserted between agree the sum of and £75,000. Are you ready to proceed to the vote, Leader?
Yes.
Leader?
Motion.
Deputy Leader? Motion. Councillor Bell? Councillor Blake? Councillor Brodie? Councillor Carruthers Ian? Councillor Carruthers Karen? Councillor Findlay Carson? Councillor Davidson? Councillor Dempster? Councillor Dick? Councillor Diggle? Councillor Dryborough? Councillor Dykes? Councillor Ferguson?
Motion.
Councillor Forster? Provost Groom?
Abstain, wasn't here.
Councillor Yen? Councillor Lever? Councillor McCaughtrey? Councillor McClung?
Motion.
Councillor McComb? Councillor McCutcheon? Councillor McGregor? Councillor McKee? Councillor Maitland? Councillor Mayle? Councillor Marshall? Councillor Martin? Councillor Nicholson? Councillor Nicholl? Councillor Ogilvie? Councillor Scobie? Councillor Smith? Councillor Stitt? Councillor Syme? Councillor Thompson Stephen? Councillor Thompson Ted? Councillor Tuckfield? Councillor Witts? Councillor Wood? Councillor Wiper? The motion is carried by 25 votes to 15 with 2 abstentions.
Move on to item 4, meeting of Employment and Appeals Subcommittee of 20th of November.
Happy to move, Chair.
Item 5, meeting of Crichton Subcommittee, 23rd of November 2012.
Happy to move.
I'm happy to second. Item 6, meeting of Pensions Subcommittee of 30th of November. Seconder for that. Now move on to item 7, calendar of meetings 2013, report by Director Chief Executive Service. This report sets out a revised calendar of meetings which reflects, insofar as practical, the views expressed by members on 29th November 2012. It also covers the issue of meeting venues and the possibility of a morning meeting overrunning, where there are 2 meetings held on the same day. I think you've done as well as you could to organise the calendar, because it doesn't always suit everyone. I'm sure you'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Leader.
Councillor Nicholson.
It's not a question, it's just to thank the officers for the hard work that's been put into this to come to some kind of balanced approach.
Councillor Ogilvie.
Just to echo that, I did say that it didn't balance out and I was left with sort of fortnights. This is better. No, thanks very much, Alec.
Councillor Stitt.
Can I just refer to William Blythe Trust Meetings and Planning Applications Committee? I believe we've 2 councillors in Abbey Ward who sit in planning application, and we need 3 councillors to sit in the William Blythe Trust Meetings.
I'll address that, sir.
Councillor Driver.
Thanks very much, Chair. Just to echo Councillor Nicholson Ogilvie, the work the officers have put into this, I just wanted to go to 3.3 in particular, where it goes halfway down the paragraph saying greater attention will be given to agenda management. I'm just hoping this isn't a backward step in trying to stifle debate in Chamber.
Absolutely not, sir.
Councillor Blake.
In relation to the William Blythe Trust, the meetings are normally at 9 a.m. In Dalbeattie, and obviously the planning application starts at 10:30. The meetings barely last 30 minutes. Occasionally they do get an afternoon one, but providing the timing was such, it should be okay.
Right. With that, we have the recommendations. Nobody otherwise minded. And thank you for the work you put into that, Mr. Haswell, and your staff. Right. Move on to item 8, Local Government Finance Settlement 2013-14 to 14-15. This report sets out the National Local Government Finance Settlement for the years 2013-14 to 2014-15. The settlement is in line with last year's settlement, which covered a 3-year period, and with the Scottish Spending Review. There are caveats regarding the council tax freeze and maintaining teacher numbers in line with pupil numbers, as well as securing places for probationers. There is reference made in the report to police and fire reform, which will result in the removal of both capital and revenue funding, but it is anticipated that this will have a neutral impact on the council provision. Provision is also made to help address the costs of disaggregation and the new accountability arrangements. Mr. Garrett, have you anything to add to the report? And I'm sure you'll be happy to answer questions if required.
Thanks, Chair. Yep. Just one point to add to the report. It's been confirmed that, unlike in previous years, this year council leaders will not be required to formally write to Scottish Government to indicate acceptance of the settlement deal. It's being done by exception this year. In terms of the settlement details itself, as you said, it's effectively confirmation of years 2 and 3 of the 3-year settlement that was announced this time last year, with adjustments made for police and fire funding. Effectively, the key message from the report is it's in line with previous assumptions and does not impact on the council's overall budget position or savings targets. As you say, happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thanks very much. I appreciate the clarification, because obviously the Minister's letter makes it clear that, unlike previous years, we don't have to agree to the commitments. We just have to decide whether we disagree with the commitments, and therefore only write to the Minister should we actually disagree. I'm presuming that that's an effort by the Minister to avoid getting the barrage of letters he got last year from every council, basically telling them very unpolitely what they thought of his agreement. If that's the case, then obviously I think the recommendations changed slightly. I don't 2.3 isn't required anymore, and I'm assuming that 2.2 would be changed to something like, note the terms attached by the Scottish Government to the settlement package, and that should the council disagree with the package, it would have its allocation reduced, etc. So, we're not being asked to agree to anything today. We're just, if we actually disagree with it, we have to write to the Minister, but if we agree with it, we don't have to do anything. So I'm assuming we'll amend those recommendations when we come to actually deciding at the end, because we don't have to make a decision saying we agree with this particular package. Can I just add one other, what I'm not entirely clear about though is the commitment in relation to teacher numbers. I'm completely unclear what that actually means. It makes reference to maintain teacher numbers in line with pupil numbers. Now obviously each council has different ratios, and it's not entirely clear to me what impact that commitment will have on the budget setting process. We have been given, and I'm sure that when we get the administration's budget today, it'll have all the T's crossed and the I's dotted, and we'll have a detailed financial budget at the end of the meeting today, so that the public will know exactly where the cuts are going to come. I'll look forward to that later, but at the moment, one of the concerns people have is that there were two options considered last year in relation to teacher numbers that I'm not entirely clear whether or not we can take those. It was the one that referred to, I think, about £302,000 in primary education, obviously the cuts in devolved budgets as well. It's not clear to me whether we would be in contravening the commitment here that the Minister's asking us to take, should we actually take those particular options. And I haven't seen anywhere any clarification from the government on that.
Mr Garrett.
Yeah, it's certainly the case that there has been concerns regarding the degree of clarification on that particular commitment. COSLA have been speaking to the Scottish Government on that, seeking some further information. I think the key point for us, and it is reflected on page 47 of the papers, is that this will have an impact on some of the savings options that have been presented to members in terms of the extent to which they can reflect teacher reductions. It is reflected in the report. Director of School Services will provide advice to groups on where savings can be made without impacting on that commitment.
Councillor Lever.
Thank you, Leader. Page 23, item 9, the Chancellor's Autumn Statement. Could I ask Mr Garrett if John Surrey's given any indication where the more than £300 million of Barnett consequentials will be spent?
At the minute, there's been no clarification. We would normally, local government would normally get 28% of that amount. And I spoke to COSLA yesterday on this, and they said they've not had any confirmation from the Scottish Government on how they're going to utilise those monies. They may pass the normal share on to local government, they may not, they may use it for other commitments. They may pass it to local government, but actually bring with it particular commitments or requirements. So we're still waiting for clarification on that. But COSLA's current position is we're fully expecting to get the 28% normal share of that. That will come through as a redetermination during both 2013-14 and 2014-15.
Councillor Thompson, Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. It was just a question on item 6.3 to do with the disaggregation, cost of disaggregation, and I was just wanting to clarify if it was known whether that would be in perpetuity or for 1 year only.
Yes, that is in perpetuity. It's part of our base settlement now. We receive that on an ongoing basis.
Councillor McCaughtrey.
Thanks, Chairman. Now, I think we've been unfairly treated yet again by the Scottish Government in this settlement. And I've got to say, having sat here and castigated Mrs Thatcher many years ago for her treatment of local government, it pales into insignificance the attacks made on local government by Swinney and Salmond over the last 5 or 6 years. And I think it's incumbent on us to stand up for local people, and I really think the Council next year has got to make a case for appropriate funding for this area. And I would certainly hope that our representatives at COSLA will get COSLA to start taking on the Scottish Government to ensure that local government gets its fair share. We can't continue like this, and it's quite significant that at some of the public meetings we had, members of the public were actually raising the point they'd rather see an increase in council tax than the continual cutting that's been forced upon us by Salmon's sordid government. So I think it's high time we stood up for the people of Dumfries and Galloway against this government, and let's get COSLA, who represents all the local authorities in Scotland, to take a stance against them as well.
Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, Chair, it's just the 7.2 in terms of the new allocation in reference to looked after children and still no recognition of this council's position in terms of that we do recognise those with comparable needs, and it's just to ensure that we are committed to lobbying both Scottish Government and the UK Government on the fact that there is a shortfall in there on what we provide. It is well short from the settlement and the Scottish Government to recognise more than just looked after children, but also those with comparable needs, as is our position.
And Councillor Davidson.
Thank you, Leader. I believe I've reminded Councillor McCaughey more than once in the past that in the 2011 Holyrood manifesto, his own party's manifesto, they committed to a council tax freeze. I just wonder how those facts correlate with his somewhat dubious opinion.
Right, if we go to the recommendations, I'll move them as they are tabled.
Have it a second.
I'll make an amendment, and I
Councillor
didn't
Smith.
think it would actually require an amendment, but fair enough. If such as your opportunity to cuddle up to the minister, you agree with something you don't actually have to agree with, fair enough. But I would change 2.2 to note the terms attached by the Scottish Government to the settlement package, and that should the Council disagree with the commitments, and that's the amendment basically. And then you remove 2.3 and you amend 2.4 to read, note that based on members' decisions, there is no direct impact on previously reported savings. We've been told today that we don't actually have to write to a minister to agree with something, but obviously you're keen to embrace the decisions of the Scottish Government.
Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, I'm quite happy to second that.
Mr Haswell.
You have a motion and an amendment, Leader. The motion is with yourself, seconded by the Deputy Leader, and that is that the recommendations detailed at 2.1 to 2.4 in the report be adopted. The amendment is by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Dryborough, and that is that in paragraph 2.2, the words in the second line from not to commitments be deleted and the words disagree with be inserted. Paragraph 2.3 falls, and in paragraph 2.4 the words agreeing to the settlement package are deleted and the word decisions is inserted. Can I just be sure that that's correct, sir? Thank you very much. Are you ready to proceed to the vote?
Yes.
Thank you, Leader. Yourself, Leader.
Motion.
Deputy Leader.
Motion.
Councillor Bell. Motion. Councillor Blake. Motion. Councillor Brodie. Councillor Ian Carruthers. Councillor Karen Carruthers. Councillor Carson. Councillor Davidson. Councillor Dempster. Councillor Dick. Councillor Diggle. Councillor Dryborough. Councillor Dykes. Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Forster. Provost Groom. Councillor Yen. Councillor Lever. Councillor McCaughey. Councillor McClung. Councillor McComb. Councillor McCutcheon. Councillor McGregor. Councillor McKee. Councillor Maitland. Councillor Mayo. Councillor Marshall. Councillor Martin. Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Nicholl. Councillor Ogilvie. Councillor Scobie. Councillor Smith. Councillor Stitt. Councillor Syme. Councillor Stephen Thompson. Councillor Ted Thompson. Councillor Tuckfield. Councillor Witts. Councillor Wood. Councillor Wiper. Motion's carried by 23 votes to 19.
Move on to item 9, update and corporate budget position. Mr. Garrett, have you anything to add, or are you happy to answer questions?
If you don't mind, Leader, maybe just take through members through a couple of the key issues in the report. The report updates the Council's financial plan assumptions for the upcoming 3 financial years, with the bottom line effectively being the impact on the Council's funding gap or savings requirement over that period. If you look at paragraph 3.2 on page 49 of your papers, in the summer we indicated to members estimated savings requirements of £27 million over the next 3 years and a target of £8.4 million for 2013-14. Table below that at paragraph 4.1 updates those assumptions. The assumptions that are very much in line with previous estimates, with 2 specific issues which are reflected in the table. The first is we've assumed or had assumed a 1% pay award uplift for next year. That is still the case. That's the basis of the causal offer to the trade unions at the moment. That offer also includes, beyond the 1%, an increase in the living wage from £7.20, which the Council already pays, to £7.50 an hour from next year. And the cost of that increase would be £190,000 above the 1% general assumption. That in itself adds to the savings target. However, we're also benefiting at the moment from the continuation of very low interest rates in our borrowing. Due to these low interest rates, we're continuing our approach of borrowing on a temporary short-term basis at the moment, generally at rates of around about 0.4 or 0.5%. Now that's instead of longer-term borrowing, which is usually the majority of our borrowing, which is at rates of around about 4.5 to 4.75%. So we're making a significant saving in loan charges as a result of that. Now that's a temporary saving because we will have to replace that borrowing. It will also have to move back to longer-term borrowing for a new borrowing as we go forward. So it is very much a temporary benefit, but it's one that I think allows us to remove £700,000 of the projected uprating for loan charges for the upcoming financial year. So the overall impact of that is that the savings target for 13-14 has been reduced by £500,000 from £8.4 million to 7.9, with the overall target for 3 years remaining around about the £27 million mark. The other key issue reflected in the report's paragraph 4.7 on page 51. The existing budget model includes £2.2 million of non-recurring policy development allocations in your current year's budget. That amount effectively becomes available again for reallocation as part of this year's budget proposals. In addition to that, the budget model assumes a £1 million uprating for policy development each year. And the report recognises this and says to members that given the extent of non-recurring monies available, members may consider it appropriate to remove this £1 million uprating, at least for 2013-14, to limit the level of savings required next year. Happy to answer any questions members have this, Chair. Thank you.
Just in line with the loan charges, it's noticeable that with energy inflation, food inflation and that are going up. Do you think it's prudent that we take that 700 just now, in your professional opinion?
We've looked at a range of forecasts in terms of where interest rates are heading. There's 3 forecasts that we look at on a regular basis: sector, our own Treasury advisors, UBS and Capital Economics, and they tend to vary in terms of when they project increases to be. I think based on the advice from those 3 advisors at the minute, that it's likely to be well into 2013 before interest rates move at all. It may be beyond that at the start of 2014. I think it's appropriate to reduce that allowance at this stage, but it's something we'll have to monitor very carefully and obviously come back to members if things change. Because once we start to get indications of increasing rates, that's when we'll have to move back to a longer term borrowing.
Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Chair. Just a question to Paul. It's on on the loan charges. Interest rates are coming down. Borrowing's at its lowest level and that. One thing I need to ask you, Paul, is administration fee. Normally it's about 1%. If someone's going to normally someone wants to borrow £1 million, it's what they call it. You have to pay a 1% administration fee. What's the council paying administration fees when they're borrowing at the moment?
I'll have to come back to you with the actual figure, but it's an awful lot less
than 1%.
We're paying a fraction of a percent.
In agricultural terms, it's about 1%.
Right. Okay. I can certainly come back to you with the actual figure, but significantly below that.
Because that's quite an important item in arrangement fees. It can add up to a lot of money.
Councillor Carruthers.
You maybe partly answered, but see, you're predicting 190 budget pressure and the increase in living wage. That's for the next 3 years. Is that likely to be the right figure over the next 3 years? And you've kind of touched on it regarding the 700k in removal of loan charge uprating. Again, do you think that'll carry on? You said it could be shorter timelines, maybe even longer timelines. Have you got any predictions on both, please?
The figure of £190,000 is accurate in terms of a move to £7.50 for 2013 for a living wage. Now, obviously, we haven't got any information on where the living wage will go after 2013-14. What was said in the report is that rather than try and estimate that, we've made a general provision of 1.5% for a pay award for both 14-15 and 15-16. That doesn't mean we're expecting everybody's pay to go up by 1.5%. What we've included in that is some provision for what they call bottom loading towards the low pay. So we'll be continuing to review. We've made an allowance for an increase in the living wage, but the details of that will come through this time next year. And in terms, effectively in terms of loan charges, it's similar to the answer I gave to the previous question, that we will continue to monitor closely loan charges movements. I think it is appropriate to remove that uprating for 2013-14, but we'll have to look at an ongoing basis for the subsequent years.
Councillor Smith.
Thanks very much, Leader. I've never been able to borrow £1 million, so I'll bow to Councillor Bell's knowledge on what the charges are for these things. I think that there's a couple of things. I mean, I have to say, and Paul probably knows I'm going to raise this point, there's one part of this report I do strongly object to, is the fact that there's an assumption simply made that members automatically agree that and it's not just £700,000 that's been made available from the issues around loan charges, it's actually 2.2 million. But what this report also says is that we're agreeing to spend £1.5 million on preventative maintenance. Now, I would have thought a decision like that was a matter for members to take. Last December, when we had a similar report, we were asked to take that decision. I disagreed with it. I thought that money should actually be part of the budget setting process, and we agreed that in February. Others disagreed with that, but at the very least, members made that decision last December, but this year we're just being asked to assume, and you can see it on paragraph 4.52, that we're just assuming we're just about to spend £1.5 million worth of taxpayers' money on something without actually having a discussion or a debate on it. And I think that's the wrong way to go about spending taxpayers' money at a time when we're scrambling around trying to find savings all over the place. All of a sudden we just throw £1.5 million because we happen to have it, because the projections we made for loan charges weren't exactly accurate. So I do object to that being in the report in the way it actually is. I think on the issue of the living wage, I would quite like an update on the decision we took in July 2011. If you remember, we didn't just decide to pay a living wage as a supplement, which is what happens at the moment. We actually agreed to, and I'll read the words out, it was actually an amendment by Robert Higgins, seconded by Ronnie Nicholson, that the Council adopt the implementation of a living wage, which was in accordance with the Scottish Government policy by way of a supplement to the Scottish Joint Council rates of pay from the 1st of October 2011 in the crucial part, and to remit to officers to undertake a wider review with the trade unions to embed the living wage in the Council's pay and grading structure, appreciating that any financial impact of the review would be considered as part of the budget development process for implementation by the 1st of April 2013. So we didn't just agree as a Council to introduce a living wage, we agreed to a report embedding that into the Council's pay structure, and we agreed to have that done so we can actually take those decisions to implement it as part of the budget setting process in April 2013. Now, I might have missed something, but I certainly can't recall receiving that report, and I'd quite like to get an update as to how far we are with actually discussions with trade unions and actually embedding that within the Council's pay structures. I actually think today, frankly, we shouldn't just be making an assumption that whatever negotiations take place between COSLA and the trade unions, that we'll have a living wage of £7.50 an hour. We're either committed to a living wage or we're not committed to a living wage, and I think we should be making it absolutely clear today in the recommendations that we support a living wage of £7.50 an hour from the 1st of April 2013. We either agree with it or we don't agree with it. If the negotiations result in a higher living wage than that, although there is frankly a formula for a living wage, then we'll have to incorporate that at a future level. But I think we should be agreeing today that we have a living wage, irrespective of what the outcome is of negotiations, from the 1st of April 2013. And if people disagree, then we'll go to a vote or whatever, but I certainly would move that.
Councillor Stephen Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a question on page 58 of 62. The police and fire ongoing costs, 2013-14 down as 350,000, and then the following years it's 0 and 0. I was just wondering if how that ties in with the perpetual payment settlement from. Thank you.
Yes, I have this issue on a number of occasions in terms of whether we show the figures cumulatively or not. If you look at the bottom of that sheet, it says the figures shown reflect year on year rather than cumulative increases. So effectively what we're saying there is it's 350,000 and then it remains 350,000. It doesn't vary in year two. If I take as an example the top line there, pay award, that's a £1.8 million increase in 2013-14, another 2.7 in 14-15. Effectively that means it's £4.5 million above current levels by that stage. So it's year on year increases that we're showing there.
Thank you. Yeah, I noticed the note at the bottom there. It was just this, I take it whenever we secure a settlement, we still have to include that figure as a cost we incur even though it's covered. Yep.
That's correct, yes.
Councillor Crowther.
Just to go back to Councillor Smith's point, if that's okay, when I asked for clarity of Paul, my understanding was on page 49 you've got the previously indicated funding gap. The increase in living wage was indicated as 190 fixed for the next 3 years as a prediction, and below that you've got the increased future pay award stroke other. And my understanding of what Paul said was is a 1.5% uplift built into that line there to accommodate the living wage, unless otherwise it becomes apparent that the living wage has an increase that surpasses that.
Again, that's correct. It's a 1.5% general allowance for increases in pay levels next year, or pay costs next year.
Councillor Maitland.
I have a certain sympathy with members suggesting that we haven't had the information come back to us as we agreed. I will say that I wouldn't care to go as far as Councillor Smith wishes to go at this point, simply because I don't have the information in front of me. And I think it should be in front of me as part of the report that is expected to come. I will say at this point that I think it is possible that I might have been wrong about my fears about the living wage, and I would like to receive further information about it. However, we are in a sluggishly growing economy, and I think it's appropriate to revisit and reconsider what is going on. So with that, I hope that we might agree to receive a report, as we are expected to do, with the information against it, where we can make decisions based on information.
Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, I think that was a point Councillor Smith made. It was on that report, and the report is not if we embed it, it's how to embed it into the council. And we haven't had an answer back where we are in that yet.
Mr. Haswell, would that be possible to get an early report to that prior to budget setting?
I understand there's been a fair amount of work. I'm not entirely certain where we are. Councillor Smith's asked me a question that I don't know the direct answer to, but I can come back to members. Certainly we will bring back a report to members if they wish a report on the living wage, and I'll refer back to that specific minute paragraph that Councillor Smith's alluding to, and we can bring a report back to members. You're not due to set your budget until the 8th of February, so I think we could bring something back to the cycle of committee meetings that you have as part of your budget development and budget decision-making processes.
Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Leader. I appreciate entirely Councillor Smith's sentiments in this, but I think you'll find, and I'm hoping my ex-colleagues up in the corner of the room there will agree with me, the job evaluation process actually debars us doing that, because it actually devoids the, it would give an unfair reflection, and I think we need some clarity coming back from members exactly how that would impact on the job evaluation scheme, right, without dismantling the whole thing.
Well, we'll put that into the report to make sure that we've got the fullest of information. Councillor Smith.
Well, I mean, I remind Councillor Ferguson that somebody who's supposed to be in a trade union, he would actually be aware there's a number of local authorities across Scotland that actually already embed the living wage within their pay structures, and The reality is that what I'm asking for here is actually to implement the decisions that were made by members of this council. This decision was made on the 15th of July 2011, and we were asked to have a report on what the consequences would be of embedding that. And all that we're actually asking for is that the decisions that are taken by councillors are actually implemented, and they're not being implemented at the moment. And if Councillor Ferguson is aware of problems or other issues, then frankly that should be contained within the report. And that's what we've asked for. And I certainly know for a fact that trade unions support the embedding of the living wage into pay and grading. And frankly, we should get that report on that. But I'll come back to the other point as well. From the 1st of April, we should be making a clear commitment, and it'll be through a supplement, I assume, in this occasion, until we eventually do get round to embedding it, but we agree today to increase the living wage to £7.50 per hour from the 1st of April 2013.
Right, as there's no other speakers, can I just remind all members that the report in front of us is the officer's professional opinion based on previous spend patterns. It is up to members to set the budget. These are just suggestions that have come forward and for indicative purposes. And I'm sure come budget day, there may be some changes, there may not be. It depends on what happens over the next 6 or 7 weeks. As such, I would just move that we agree recommendation 2 to note the revised financial planning assumptions. Mr. Haswell.
Sorry, sir, I didn't understand.
I'll read it out again, and obviously I'm assuming that the leader is now moving not to have the report that was previously agreed, no. Which is interesting, but I'll move that one of the recommendations is obviously the one that's in the report, but also to agree to raise the living wage to £7.50 per hour from the 1st of April 2013. And the second one is to agree to receive the outstanding report on embedding the living wage in the council's pay and grading structure, ensuring that any financial impact of the review would be considered as part of the budget development process for implementation by the 1st of April 2013. And to be honest, it's just repeating what was agreed in July 2011.
So, Leader, you have a motion and an amendment. The motion, Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Nicholson, is that this council agrees today to raise the living wage to £7.50 with effect from the 1st of April 2013, and that as part of the budget process, members will receive a report on embedding the living wage into the council's pay and grading structure, and that this be carried out as part of the budget process. Will Councillor Smith accept that I'll pick up the exact words from the minute of the meeting which is quoted, because I didn't get them all written down, but I will pick it up straight from the minute. Is that acceptable to Councillor Smith, sir? Thank you. The amendment is by yourself, Leader, seconded by the Depute Leader, and that is to the effect that the report before members is for noting and to inform the budget process as detailed in recommendation 2.
Mr. Hassel, I was taking the part with regard to receiving a report as a given.
Well, if you can tell the member, if the member's prepared to alter his motion to that effect, sir, that's for Councillor Smith and Nicholson. If you're telling me, as clearly you have, or the council have, you wish a report forward as part of the budget process, that will happen.
Councillor Dykes.
Thank you, Leader. I thought you had already moved prior to actually moving the recommendation, because you mentioned during the debate that you wanted the report to come forward. I just took it that that was part of what you were moving. Sorry.
I'm happy to amend your amendment to that effect, that you will receive a report on embedding the living wage, etc. So I'll defer to Councillor Scobie, sir.
Yeah, Chair, if you have moved an amendment, it would not be easier just to accept the Labour's motion in the first place, if they're both saying the same?
They are different, sir. The motion is with Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Nicholson, and that is that this council agrees to raise the living wage to £7.50 with effect from the 1st of April 2013. And that you also receive a report, as previously requested, on embedding the living wage into the Council's pay and grading structures as part of this budget process. The amendment is by the Leader, seconded by the Deputy Leader, and that is to the effect that members note the revised planning assumptions and associated savings requirements for the upcoming 3 financial years as part of their budget development process, and it also includes the requirement to bring forward the report on embedding the living wage as part of the budget process. Leader, are you ready to proceed to the vote? Yes. Leader.
Amendment.
Deputy Leader.
Amendment.
Councillor Bell. Councillor Blake. Councillor Brodie. Councillor Ian Carruthers. Councillor Karen Carruthers. Councillor Carson. Councillor Davidson. Councillor Dempster. Councillor Dick. Councillor Diggle. Councillor Dryborough. Councillor Dykes. Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Forster. Provost Groom. Councillor Yen. Councillor Lever. Councillor McCaughtrey. Councillor McClung. Councillor Macomb. Councillor McCutcheon. Councillor McGregor. Councillor McKee. Councillor Maitland. Councillor Mayo. Councillor Marshall. Councillor Martin. Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Nicholl. Councillor Ogilvie. Councillor Scobie. Councillor Smith. Councillor Stitt. Councillor Syme. Councillor Stephen Thompson. Councillor Ted Thompson. Councillor Tuckfield. Councillor Witts. Councillor Wood. Councillor Wiper. Leader, the amendment is carried by 26 votes to 16.
Chair, we'll move now on to item 10, release of administration's budget proposal. Mr. Haswell is wondering, we gave you some envelopes to distribute.
Anybody know where they are? Clear. Clear's the way to get them.
Members, I have pleasure in tabling the administration's draft budget proposal. This is in line with the decision of full council on the 23rd of August this year. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the members of the public who responded to our budget engagement exercise. We are grateful for their time and effort. I would also like to thank officers for their professional advice and extend a particular thank to Councillors Nicholl and Dick for their hard work on this budget proposal over a number of months. I am confident that our budget proposal will be subject of a great deal of scrutiny in the run-up to budget setting in February.
Chair, can I ask you to maybe delay just for a second or two till this is done, because I can't hear a word you're saying.
Start again.
I'm glad to hear that my words are so appreciated.
I listen to comedy shows as well.
Right. If we're all ready, I have pleasure in tabling the administration's draft budget proposal. This is in line with the decision of full council on 23rd of August this year. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the members of the public who responded to our budget engagement exercise. We are grateful for their time and effort. I would also like to thank officers for their professional advice and extend a particular thank to Councillors Nicholl and Dick for their hard work on this budget proposal over a number of months. I am confident that our budget proposal will be subject to a great deal of scrutiny in the run-up to the budget setting in February, and I look forward to participating fully in that. As in previous years, we are happy to hear from other political groups and individual members if they have suggestions they would wish to see incorporated into the administration's proposal. These proposals will be published on the Council's website along with the impact assessments at the end of this meeting. I will now ask Councillor Collins, Deputy Leader, to say a few words.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to join you in thanking members of the administration for their efforts in drawing up this budget, thanking officers for their professional advice, and above all, thanking the public for participating in the recent consultation. In February, following the Council's budget setting, the administration will, as promised, publish feedback on the public engagement. We will also at that time publish the details of the feedback and of any proposals we have received from other political groups and individual members. This administration has an open door policy as far as our budget proposals are concerned. We have published our draft budget and we are looking forward to engaging with other political groups and individual members in the weeks ahead.
Thank you, Brian. As agreed, that's the process that we were agreed to, that we table the budget today and we'll look for comment on it in future. I have had a request for an emergency motion to be tabled. However, I have before me the motion and there's no indication of timelines, and I would be of the view that the motion isn't an emergency motion but could be picked up through the normal process with regard to Council policies and procedures. I have no further business that I wish to discuss. I would like, all that remains is for me to wish colleagues a peaceful break over Christmas and the New Year.
Chair, that's an absolute disgrace. There's a man here wanting to speak and had his hand up and he didn't even have the courtesy to acknowledge him.
I had moved on and I was reading the things. I have no further business for this meeting. Thank you for your attendance.